Next, we have a presentation from Mr. Edward Harness, the Executive Director of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency, regarding the CPOA's report for fourth quarter 2018.
Good evening, Good evening, Madam President, Honorable Council. I prepared for you a couple of handouts which I believe you should have in front of you. For the months of October through December of 2018, the Police Oversight Board and the CPOA administratively closed 32 cases. There were 3 cases with sustained violations, which contained 2 written reprimands and 1 suspension as a recommendation. We had 1 not sustained finding, 1 exonerated, and 1 unfounded. As it relates to the Independent Monitor's Report number 8, IMR 8, which was produced to the public on the 2nd of November, of the paragraphs that pertain directly to the CPOA, 19 of the 22 paragraphs we are in operational compliance. As a subset of that, I wanted to expand a little bit on administratively closed cases. As we've been meeting with the monitor over the periods of IMR 6 and 5 before that, and then the 2 mini reports, which constituted 7, we were in negotiations with the monitor to expand the definition of an administratively closed case to increase the efficiencies within the agency. When you look at an agency-by-agency comparison, Internal Affairs opened 60 cases for the entire year of 2018, where the CPOA opened 275 cases during that same time period. Internal Affairs has 6 investigators. The CPOA has 4 investigators. So it's incumbent upon us to increase our efficiencies. So what we established was a minimally substantiate the allegations in the complaint. So when we get a complaint, we do a preliminary investigation by viewing the video, because we have access to the video. We review the police reports if there are any available. We review the computer-aided dispatch reports. And if we cannot minimally substantiate the allegations in the complaint, then we will administratively close the complaint without targeting an officer and going through the exercise of having something become unfounded when we know on the face of it those allegations simply just did not occur. For the year of 2017, we administratively closed about 29% of our cases. For the first quarter of 2018, I can report to you that we're administratively closing 79% of our cases. So we've increased our efficiencies quite a lot. The importance of IMR 8 is that this is the first time that the monitor was able to evaluate the administratively closed standard for minimal substantiation. And they've agreed with the work that we're doing, and they've agreed to that standard and to allow us to continue to use that standard to administratively close cases. As far as the policy work by the POB, there is a second attached page which describes the policies that have gone through the Office of Policy Analysis and the Office for the Policies, Procedures, and Review Board. All of those policies were reviewed in some aspect by either the member of the committee, Dr. Cass, or by the entire Oversight Board, including the subcommittee. There was a special meeting in November regarding the ordinance rewrite. And as far as outreach, there's been attendance at numerous community policing councils across the city. We've done a presentation to the Public Defender's Office for Metro Court, 2 presentations to APD's 2 new lateral classes, 1 presentation to the 120th APD Cadet Academy class, and 1 presentation to the Community Policing Council's quarterly summit convened by Mayor Keller. On a personal note, I would just like to say a little over 3 years ago, this body and the community welcomed me. I want to take a moment to say thank you to you and to the community for embracing myself and the work that we're doing. I'm happy to be living and working here in this undiscovered gem that we call Albuquerque. I stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Harness? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Harness, thanks so much for doing this. It's been a while, and it's great to see this in a more public forum so folks can see it. I just wanted to follow up really quickly under your casework. You noted 3 sustained violations, 2 written reprimand recommendations, and 1 suspension recommendation. At one point in years past, we were having problems with APD concurrence and communicating that back to the board. Can you give us an update on APD's concurrent status on those 3 sustained violations?
Madam President, Councillor Davis, yes, in these instances, the department concurred with those findings. Okay. Our concurrence rate is near 90%. I believe in our next quarterly report that we'll make to you in March, there will be a couple of non-concurrences that we will have for the first quarter of 2019.
That's great. And as frustrating as it is to see us go through these processes and to find places where officers didn't do the right thing sometimes, it happens, and we want to get that corrected. But it's a big step forward that the administration and the police department is working, new police administration is working with POB to resolve those problems, and I appreciate that.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Harness, thank you for this report. This is great. Thank you for your work on it. The question I have, you mentioned that there was a special meeting that was called in November. Did I hear you correctly? Last November?
Yes, Madam President, Councillor Gibson. The Police Oversight Board held a special meeting to go through the ordinance rewrite so that they could absorb it as a body, and then at the subsequent meeting, that's when they made their recommendations, which were forwarded to the council and are before the Finance and Government Subcommittee at this point.
Great. So is that a common occurrence for the board to schedule special meetings? Or is it, can you give me an idea of like how many you might have had in the past 12 months?
Madam President, Councillor Gibson, I believe we've had 2 special meetings in calendar year 2018.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borrego.
Thank you, Mr. Harness. Thank you for your work, and thank you for this report. A little bit overdue, but thank you. I appreciate that. On your second page, you have, I guess, presentations and the presenter, and then you have the action posted. What does that mean exactly? You posted what did you post? I don't understand that.
President, Council President, Vice President Borrego. Yes, as Dr. Cass has this broken out from the policy subcommittee, the action posted from Office of Policy Analysis means that the policy goes from the Office of Policy Analysis to be posted on the Power DMS system within APD, which gives all APD personnel 7 days to comment on that particular policy before that policy then goes to the Policy and Procedures Review Board. And all of those comments that come from APD through Power DMS are then incorporated with that policy as it's then considered at the Policy Procedure Review Board.
Okay, thank you. And I would just mention, I did watch the, I guess it was the November meeting, which is on the GOV channel, so that, you know, for the public, that's helpful to understand some of these changes that are occurring. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't have a question for you, Mr. Harness, but I do have a question for our staff, Ms. Yara. How far along are we in sending the 3 names to the council to fill that board?
Yes, Madam President, Councillor Sanchez. So Mr. Melendres and Mr. Moya and I are evaluating 12 applications that hadn't been vetted, and we're going to meet actually tomorrow to discuss those, and then we will supply the top probably between 5 and 8 names to the CPOA and the POB, so they can begin initiating those people into their process, and hopefully we will be able to appoint 3 of those for the vacancies very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harness, and for our staff as well as you're evaluating them. If we can just look to have more diversity on this board, I think it's important as we move forward. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harness.